question.
in America?
So I was born to Jamaican parents. So I was first generation born in the United States. I was born in New York on Long Island. And from there, I went to junior high school in Long Island, Turtle Hook Junior High School. And from there, I moved to Florida. I finished high school in Florida. And yeah, I think New York influenced my growing up, as well as being in a Jamaican home, the food, the culture, the values, strict parents, but definitely ties to, an African consciousness. My parents were, they would go to protests. My mom was in the union. She worked at she worked at a hospital for elderly people. So my first protest, I was 5 years old. So we were very politically involved and making sure that we stood for what is right, which leads to now being the international president of the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated and standing for truth and rights. So we always want to be on the right side of history. I learned that at an early age. I remember apartheid, and I remember being an American citizen of Jamaican parents, understanding the impact of the transatlantic slave trade and recognizing that in my lifetime, there were black people who were not free yet. So we had bumper stickers about, anti-apartheid bumper stickers. We knew about Winnie Mandela, Nelson Mandela. I read books about Winnie Mandela as a child. And then when he was liberated from incarceration, we went to go see him on his first visit to the United States. When he came to Brooklyn, my mom took me for that. So understanding the great African leaders was always a part of my upbringing. So there's that connection with Africa and how, regardless of where we are African people, and we have this common bond, and we need to stand up for each other.
That's amazing. And apart from that, how was the home like? How was living in a Jamaica home with your parent like? Yeah, who were very politically.
Thank you for asking. So growing up in a Jamaican home, my parents worked a lot. Everything that we had was a result of hard work. So I have a biological father who has passed on now in 2010. And I lived in the home with my mother and my stepfather. And my stepfather and my mom were high school sweethearts. So he was always present in my life, and he was my father. Hard worker, he was a body man. He worked on cars. And then my mom, she worked in nursing homes and in the health field until she became a real estate agent. So hard work was very much pushed. My mom usually had 2 jobs at least at a time. And that resulted in, me being raised by my family. So the early days, we all lived in the same house in Great Neck, New York. So I lived with my mother, my father, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my uncles, 2 of my uncles, and my auntie, all in this house, big house in Great Neck. And everyone went to work and came home. And, my care was a family thing. A lot of laughter, a lot of love in that home. It was a great upbringing, a lot of great food. That's how we show love in my family, is by cooking. My mom's still a caterer to this day. My great-grandmother, I remember her cooking all sorts of things and soups, very much like we eat here in Africa. So I grew up. It's a good. She cooked things like tripe and, cow tongue and things that we don't necessarily eat now that the older generation may have eaten. But she did a lot of soups. Most days she would have soup for dinner. That was my great-grandmother. And then my grandmother, she cooked a lot of things. But we also had a little bit of the British influence too. So our breakfasts were legendary because we would have like beans and, like beef hot dogs and things that are kind of British, incorporated into our meals. We didn't have as much processed foods as like my peers would have. My grandmother had a garden in the backyard. Well, my mom had a garden as well. So we would grow our own food seasonally. Of course it's New York, so it's cold. So we ate a lot from the land as well. I remember picking corn and tomatoes, and these are the things that we did. But it was a great upbringing. I wouldn't trade it for the world, having that close relationship with my auntie and my uncles, and my auntie's 14 years older than me. So, we would go, she would take me out, be my babysitter, and people were like, "Oh, that's your daughter?" And I'd be like, "That's mommy." And she's like, no, that's not my daughter. So I used to do that all the time. We still are very close. She's watching my son right now. So I could be here in Ghana. So yeah, I grew up in a very hard-working home. Definitely.
Do you have siblings? Because I only hear of your grandmother,
Yeah.
your uncles, your great-grandmother. How about siblings?
Yes.
How would you describe your siblings, and how many are them?
So from my mom and my stepdad, I'm the only one. So I grew up kind of like an only child.
Okay.
But on my biological father's side, I do have two brothers, and we have a good relationship. And like Thanksgiving, I was with my brothers on Long Island in New York. So that was very nice. And their children, they each have a boy and a girl. So those are my siblings. But when I was about 3 years old, my cousin, who was born in England, moved in with us in the States,
Okay.
Louise. So we grew up, we were 7 months apart. I'm born February, she's born September. So we grew up between the age of 3 and 14 like sisters.
Okay.
So we would wear matching clothes, matching ribbons, matching shoes,
That's twins.
matching
Like
socks.
twins.
We were like twins. And it was really awesome to have her in the home. And we fought like cats and dogs, but we're still close. So even when I went to England the other day for the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated to visit my local number 3 there, and to celebrate the Ethiopian New Year, September 11th, I was with her as well, and my other cousins in England. And then her son and my son are close. Mm-hmm. So she has a son, Tyrese, who's going to be a plumber, and he's planning on coming to Africa when we start building, repatriating, doing our land grants here, and he could do the plumbing for us. So we're instilling that multi-generational close relationship between cousins, as well as whatever you do in life, you have to contribute to Africa.
Yeah.
So he's choosing a trade, which isn't common now. Mm-hmm. You don't hear kids talking about, I'm going to do, I'll be an electrician or a plumber. They're, usually they're pushed to college. So I'm really, every time I see him, like I went live when I was here yesterday, and I saw him pop on my live, and I was like, oh, shout out to my Tyrese, who's going to help me here in Africa, build houses. So yes, Louise would be almost like a sibling, because she was my cousin. Her father and my mother are brother and sister, same mother, same father. But she was born in the UK. I was born in the United States, but she spent a lot of her formative years with me. So she's basically a sister.
All right, so let's
Yes.
go through your educational
Sure.
process. Take us through it, and to why you decided to become, you settled on being a lawyer, and has that
Yeah.
always been a childhood dream to become a lawyer?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. It has always been a childhood dream to be a lawyer. So my mom tells me when I was maybe 5 years old or so that I said, I'm going to be a lawyer, and I'm going to be the first Black woman president of the United States. And I would say those things all the time. I'm no longer interested in the second part.
What?
However, because we have our own Black people government. So, but the first part, I wanted to be a lawyer. So I went to, I always knew I was going to go to college. When my mom and my grandmother first came over to the States, they did also some domestic work and things like that. And they would talk to and study the women who they work for. And then one of the women my mom worked for said, you have to brainwash your children. She was of Jewish background. You have to brainwash your children and tell them that they're going to college. That's what we do in our culture. We brainwash our kids to their professions. And it stuck with my mom. And then, so there was never like, I'm not going to college. Okay. I was always going to college. And I did really well in high school, top of my class. I went to school in Atlanta, but, partially because I had a strict upbringing, and I do have like a little bit of a wild side. I went to college and I was like, no parents. I'm going to parties.
Okay.
I'm gonna have my first boyfriend. I'm gonna do all the things. And then I was like, oh, my grades aren't that great. But I did end up going to school in Florida. So I went to Atlanta, had my coming out party, and then I had to like transfer to back home to get a little bit more structure. And then I found my way. But my parents were like, we're not paying for this twice. We paid for it. You didn't do well. You're going to have to pay for it. So then I had to put myself through school.
So what did you learn from that? The fact that you went to college and no parent, you decided to be free and wild.
Yes.
Then the grades were coming down.
Yes.
And you had to come back home and your parents were like, no, we're not doing it again. You have to do it for yourself. What was the lesson?
It's a tough lesson.
Learned from that particular decision that you took and the effects that it had on you?
I think I learned tough love, that sometimes no is what people need to get themselves together. And I needed that no, because I never really had lack. I'm not, the family life I'm describing isn't one where I was like, we were impoverished and we didn't have, I was comfortable, so I didn't appreciate the comfort that my parents worked so hard for. Yeah. And even like going to college, I had full scholarships to a lot of schools. But I didn't choose any of the schools I had a full scholarship for. I wanted to go to the school I wanted to go to. But what that meant, which I didn't recognize at that time, was that my mom had to work 2 jobs, back to back in order to pay for the rest of my school. Because I got a scholarship, but not enough to pay for everything. And then also food and other things. So that lack of appreciation for the sacrifice, coming from parents coming from very, very little in Jamaica and giving me this life,
a very comfortable
balance is very important. So you can't give everything to your children, and you can't hold back with your children. I think having honest conversations, because now I'm a mother, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how to walk that line. But I also learned that you can do anything. You're not limited by what is given to you. You may have to earn something. It may be difficult, but in the long run, that's the fuel for you to reach excellence. So even, so I did finish college, and then I started a career as an executive. Well, I didn't start as an executive. I started with T-Mobile, which at the time was OmniPoint. Started on the phones, taking calls for a job. Then 6 months later, I was promoted to supervisor. Then 6 months later, I was promoted to deployment manager. So now I'm at the executive level.
What were you doing that made your bosses see something in you to keep promoting you to the next level?
I think it's very much being a Jamaican, I wouldn't say Jamaican because there's hardworking Americans, there are hardworking other diasporans. So I don't want to make it seem like it's a Jamaican versus other type of African thing. But working was what we did in my household, and striving to excellence is what we did. So what was normal to me as far as, being excellent and efficient, whatever, stood out. But that was just normal because that's what everyone in the family really did. I guess foundationally, my mom made sure that I was articulate and I was corrected on my speech all the time. Well, that helps when you have a phone job. Right? With regards to having a global perspective, or being, there's education, which is formal education, but then there's exposure. And I think my parents made sure I had exposure. So I could talk about any subject. I could talk about whether it's Israel or whether it's Africa or, any, like Washington, D.C. I had a Washington, D.C. trip with my parents and things like that. So it's really important that children have foundational education, that we do correct them when they're not, I don't want to say speaking proper, but if there's an opportunity for whatever career they want, you should be preparing them from when they're little to be successful in those careers, so they don't have to unlearn things when they decide this is the path I want to be on. So I had a head start because I had very driven people who were invested in me. My grades started slipping while I was under their care, I got a tutor. It was like, I had to go to an after-school program when I started doing poorly in algebra immediately. What did that mean to me? Is like, oh no, I have to go to this program after school. But to my mom, that meant I had to make more money to create this opportunity for her to go to this after-school program because she cannot slip. She cannot be unsuccessful. Everything I can do, I will do so that she's successful. There's no such things that, like if I had less than a B in my household, it was over. So setting those standards are very important as well.
It helps.
Yeah, you have to have standards for your children. Okay. And that's how my mom was. It's unacceptable for me to have a B. And she would go back to, there's no reason for it because I paid for you to get tutors. Mm-hmm. You have no excuse.
No excuse.
Yeah, so that's important that we give, regardless of our means, that we set standards. Because where you start is not where you finish. Where you start is never where you finish. You just have to strive and strive. And now with the internet, there's so much self-education that you can even practice how to speak a certain way. There are African children who are like, I love anime, I love the idea of Japan, and they literally teach themselves Japanese at home on YouTube, and they go to Japan. There's no limits, especially with the internet now for our children.
Yes. And how were you dealing with challenges in an office space when there's a challenge that you face? How do you maneuver your way through those challenges? Yeah, so
that's a fantastic question, because when you're a Black woman in the United States, in America, and in a corporate environment, you face a lot of what we call microaggressions.
Okay.
You face a lot. You even face a lot of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
You face where people overlook you for opportunities that you deserve.
Yeah.
You're put in a situation where you have to train people less prepared than you to do the job that you deserve. And it's making a determination between, do I stay or do I leave?
Give up.
Well, sometimes it's giving up, but sometimes it's being more entrepreneurial. And that's why we see a lot of us work for ourselves, because we get tired of the constant fight in the boardroom, having the men, treat you a certain way, or, either they'll want you to get coffee for them and things, like you're an errand person, even though you're educated, or they're being too close or too intimate with you and acting like it's nothing, or they're constantly correcting you so you doubt yourself when you're right.
Yeah.
So being in a corporate environment is not easy for Black people, especially for Black women. But then we have another layer of that where, because this is the rule book of the oppressor, we will be competitive with each other. So we'll be in a corporate environment and we see another Black woman, we act like there's only one spot. And then sometimes we sabotage each other, sometimes we're negative towards each other, and we need to get rid of that way of thinking.
Yes.
There's not just one spot. There's plenty of opportunity, especially if we bond together and protect each other and support each other. But, I didn't, corporate environment, I was able to move up from position to position.
Yes.
However, I did encounter those things, and I had to overcome what people would say, the setup situations. But then sometimes you find people who are champions for you. And that's always a good feeling when you have someone who is doing what you want to do. They see your talent, and then they become a champion for you. And they help you get through that, and your name is being said in rooms that you're not in, as far as your excellence. That's what I hope for all young girls, is that every environment they go in, they will have a champion who will go before them and help them to have these types of experiences. But corporate, I'm working on a book. It's called Sheltering in Place, and it's about a Black woman's experience in corporate America.
How to overcome it.
How to overcome it, and the real life situations that we may think it was just me, but it wasn't. You know, it's disheartening when you're like, I'm a lawyer. I went to law school. You know, I passed the bar. I'm in a corporate environment, and then you're treated like the help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You go home, and even though you pop your collar and you act like it doesn't affect you, it does affect you, because you're like, and still I'm treated like I'm a servant, or I'm treated like a piece of meat, like someone could just, hit me on my rear end and those types of things. And I'm very credentialed. And then you always face that decision. Do I stay or do I leave? Do I stay and create more opportunity for other women so they don't have to do that and learn as much as I can and take it back to my people? Or do I go and start my own thing and compete with them and show them who I really am? Both are good choices. Mm-hmm. Both are good choices. But it is disheartening that we still have to face that in these corporate environments.
Wow. And let's get into the law. When you started studying laws after college, you were promoted in corporate environment that you were. And at what point did you decide to get into the law school and study law? So I told you I started a career with T-Mobile, and it took me to Seattle, to the headquarters in the United States. I worked there for 2 years, and then I moved to the UK, and I worked there for T-Mobile for 3 years. Okay. And then after that, I was like, I want to start a family. I was in my 30s, and I was like, this is the time for me to start a family. I probably should do that back home. So I came back to the States, and once I came back to the States, I did have a number of other jobs. I met my ex-husband. I had my son. When I was pregnant with my son, that is when I applied for law school. And then when I started law school, he was 9 months old. And then when I was in law school, I worked 3 jobs and I had a baby. So I had a 9-month-old when I started. I worked on campus for Westlaw, which is like a search tool that people use in law school. I worked in a law firm, which is the same law firm I am at in Broward County, Florida. And then in addition to that, I waitressed. And I was a horrible waitress. And I waitressed on the weekends. And then I would take money from waitressing and I would pay for my son to take one-on-one karate classes. Okay.
Yes.
What made you a worst waitress?
Horrible. So I would spill things. I would bring out the wrong dishes. I would forget, they'd order a salad and I'd bring out the main. And then I'd remember. Then I look at the bill that I'm about to give them. I'm like, oh, I'm charging them for a salad. I didn't even bring it out. Those types of things. So I really wasn't really good as a waitress. I think I only got one really good tip. I got a $50 tip one time, and I was so happy because I was like, oh my goodness,
God, finally!
I was like, oh my goodness, finally, I got a good tip. That's being nice, or they felt sorry for me, but I was never really good at.
But how did you find your way through this? You being a waitress, you being a mother, you working in a law firm. These are things. Yeah. Things that need an attention. Yes. You need to pay attention and work on these. So how are you doing all of this? Being a mother alone, I know it's not an easy job.
It isn't.
Then you work with a law firm.
Yep.
At least we know the waitress job was not really going on well.
No.
So how are you?
And I drove an hour and a half to law school.
Oh my God.
So I was living in Palm Beach, and my law school, Florida International University, it was in Miami. So I had a 1.5 hour commute. So it was challenging. I had to figure out when I studied. So in law school, and this isn't a best practice, but in law school, usually you're only tested for your finals, or it's midterms and finals. Yeah. So I really couldn't study except right before midterms and right before finals. And because of the foundational education that I'd been given, I knew myself, and I know I can just study when I need to study. So I would take off from work the week before and then study for my law school exams. But I wasn't one who did regular studying for law school. I just kind of crammed it in because I was working so much. And that's what they say never to do in law school. And then I also competed at my law school. So I competed on the negotiations team, and then we actually went to nationals. So I got trophies for my law school in negotiations. So it was a great experience. And again, when you have strong parental influence, you just know anything's possible because you look at what they've gone through, where they came from, and your journey is not as hard. So, but you asked how do I did it? I had a lot of family support too.
Okay.
So, like when I was doing all these things, my son was with my parents.
Okay.
So that's how he grew up, like a grandma child, you know, a grandparent child, and they still send me videos that they have of him during that time.
Right.
Like, oh, this is I remember when he was, and I never seen these videos before because I wasn't there. I was working all the time. But you know, I'm grateful that they were able to provide me with that support, and that may, you know, again. They say once a man, twice a child. Now my parents are getting older. I have an obligation to, you know, take care of them. And they're fortunately very healthy and strong. But how do you repay that? How do you repay the beginning that I've been given? How do you repay the support so I could become a lawyer, and even the support so that I could develop a career in cannabis and be internationally known, flying all over the place for cannabis? I couldn't have done that without my parents. My son's never been watched by a babysitter. He's only been watched by my parents or a school, right? And I was able to put him in the best schools. So, yeah, though, you know, everything contributes to the outcome. I have empathy for those who don't have that type of family support. If it came, like when I think about mothers having to make the choice between being able to work or being able to go to school and the safety of their children, it breaks my heart. And that's something I, you know, later in life I'd like to contribute in some way. And even when I'm advocating or I'm lobbying, like we talk about cannabis dollars. What are we going to use cannabis dollars for? I'm always advocating cannabis dollars should be used for employees in the industry to have free childcare for their children, so we can make more lawyers from our community, so we can make more physicians, so we can make more professionals from our community. Because what are they going to do? I would say I had it easy because I had the parental support, but I would never be a lawyer. I would never be an international cannabis attorney, well-known cannabis attorney. I may not even be international president of the Ethiopian World Federation if I did not have that knowledge that my son was safe when I was away. Absent that, I would not leave my son, and absent that, I would not have this catalog of a career that I have. And a lot of women face that choice. A lot of women say, safety of my kid. And a lot of women have been abused as children, so they know what people are capable of. They know what people are capable of, and they're like, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that doesn't happen to my child. But as a result, they have to make difficult decisions which limit their ability to be prosperous and have successful careers.
So what motivates or inspires you to do the work during working? What motivates you? What keeps you going?
So when it comes to my work, so let's talk about my work. So being the international president of the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, which was founded in 1937 by His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I. He authorized his cousin and physician, Dr. Meleku Bayan, and his wife, Princess Dorothy Bayan, to set in place this Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated for all Black people of the world. That means if you're living on the continent, wherever you are in the diaspora, you have this common identity with Africa, with Ethiopia. You have citizenship with Ethiopia. Carrying that mantle, carrying that vision is very important. I'm very privileged to do that. The fact that we have locals all around the world that are aligned around this concept of we the Black people of the world, about the love that takes, with the progress that we want for our people, with the engagement in the in policy to ensure that people are not harmed. It's a lot to carry, but the rewards are extremely great. And I love that work. And I want to also recognize, you know, the fact that this vision came from royalty. When you're on the African continent, you know, you encounter kings and queens and chiefs regularly. But for the person of African descent in Brazil or in Jamaica or in the United States, the media, which is why it's so important that we have black media like Pan-African TV.
Yeah.
It's so important, and we don't have that everywhere. The media tells you, you're only robbers, you're only in jail, you're only pregnant teens, you're only slavery. You were slaves.
Yeah.
There's nothing that happened before slavery. So you have all these negative images.
Yes.
But through the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporation and knowing that we are the beloved children of His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie I, the great emperor of Ethiopia, whose divine line goes back to King David. He's up from the Davidic throne.
For the youth 17.
Goes back to King
and
David,
issued
King
with a
Solomon,
certificate to
Queen of
commence business
Sheba.
on the same day.
Yeah.
The principal
Emperor Menelik I. Knowing that history, you have a sense of pride. And you also have a sense of, I have to contribute. And that's what we do through the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. We take the fact that His Imperial Majesty did not count it as robbery to not only have love for his own people of his own country, but all Africans all around the world, and as a gift gave us a constitution and bylaws as a handbook for how we treat each other, how we ensure progress of our people, and a structure for, at the most granular level, how we can operate in a professional way through our committee structure, through our local structure, and also as an international executive council of people who drive the issues and solutions for all the black people of the world. So I love my job as the international president of the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. I love meeting with our locals here. I was in Ghana in October, and I'm back in Ghana now. I was in Ghana 2020, and I love Ghana. I love the idea of not only me repatriating me and my family here, but having my members all around the world know that Ghana is an option. You can come back into Ghana and make a life and live amongst your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
When we talk about this enslavement period, the 400 years, I call it the Great Separation. Because that is the oppressor's go-to strategy: separate. Separate through divisive narratives, separate by abducting us from our motherland, separating by keeping us, by creating man-made borders of African countries instead of us all being united together. Separation is their strategy. But when we can come together, we can celebrate. Whether it's one person immigrating at a time, and eventually what we're trying to build is where, as a federation, we work with the government of Ghana and other countries, and we come back together as a federation, and we contribute, and we honor how you've preserved our culture all these years while we were away. And I hope you honor that we have been away, but studying and preparing to come back and contribute. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Thank you so
really
much.
amazing.
Blessing.
And let's talk about where you had interest in agriculture and cannabis as well. Share that's with us. We'd want to know how that's came into your life.
It's funny you say that. Last night I had an interview and I mentioned that, African people have been feeding the world for centuries.
Yeah.
And food is recession-proof. Food is depression-proof. Everyone needs to eat, regardless. And we have so many resources on the African continent. And then even going back, being Jamaican and going back a couple decades, everybody had their garden. You only bought the things you had to buy, and then you can still trade. You can literally stay in your neighborhood. This person has chickens, this person has goats. You have a vegetable garden, and you can trade amongst yourselves and not really have to go to the store. But we've detached ourselves from that environment where we may live close in proximity, but we're no longer living as a community as we should. and we're no longer growing things. Our children think, where do chickens come from? This is a grocery store. They don't know, the whole metamorphosis of going from an egg to being fertilized. They've never seen it, So we need to bring the agricultural pursuits back. I always like to emphasize that agriculture is a lot of things. Agriculture is traditional horticulture, agriculture, aquaculture. There's so many aspects of an agricultural life. There's marine biology. There's so many things that we can encourage our children to pursue when it comes to agriculture. And the agricultural industry needs to be supported.
Yes.
So going back to your question, when I first became a cannabis attorney, I was struck by how few of us were in this legal cannabis industry. And I said, I'm going to the black farmers. They're already growing stuff. They'd been beaten back so much, even especially those who had been veterans that served in the military, that one spliff, a portion of a spliff, could put you in jail for life.
Yes.
In many places.
Yeah.
Which, that's draconian. That is absurd that a plant can separate you. Again, it's the separation strategy. It separates you from your family because of a plant.
But because people abuse this plant and they tend to put them in another state. So how do we control this to make sure that people are redeemed and not being put in prison for abusing this plant?
Right, so let's talk about it. I think the abuse narrative is something that has been given to us to take away from the healing narrative. So cannabis as a plant is a healing plant. It is the healing of the nations. Revelations 22:2. It is the healing of the nations. And it also has been utilized to build economies that are outside of the control of institution as well, which is why it's been demonized and made to seem like, oh, this is going to make you act a certain way. Anything can be abused. Sugar is more addictive than cannabis. Coffee is more addictive than cannabis. Okay? So when you look at it from that perspective, what are we controlling here? It should be regulated similar to carrots and lettuce, but it is an intoxicant. When you have your Christmas dinner, and I want to say Merry Christmas to all those who celebrate, for Hebrew Israelites, all the people, the Ethiopian World Federation, we are not a religious organization. I'm Rastafari, but season's greetings to all. When you are celebrating with your family, and there's a bottle of wine on the counter, it's an intoxicant. However, our children know that that's not for them.
Yes.
But for some reason, when it comes to cannabis, we act like we've never done this before. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It is very similar. In fact, it's so much less harmful than alcohol.
So how do we get people to accept the medicinal side of cannabis rather than the abusive or the evil side that they've made everybody know? So what's the way forward to make people see the medicinal side of cannabis?
Yeah, the fortunate part about it is cannabis is many things. So we have intoxicating cannabis, but there's 50,000 uses for this. So only one is intoxicating. I think we need to educate people of how the history of hemp or cannabis being used in car production, in textile production, all the other, in ropes, things used for war, plastics, and educate about all the things that cannabis does and the economies that cannabis can provide as well. So that's one part of it. But specific to your question about healing, fortunately, there's been a tremendous amount of research, and governments should be giving funding to these bright university students so that they don't fall behind on this emerging industry. Because other schools are doing it. Other countries are giving funding to schools so they can study cannabis. And then also bringing industry in to have these conversations with our youth about boundaries. So again, we can talk about sexuality. Sexuality can be abused, right?
Yeah.
We don't want young people. Some things are not for you when you're young. Consent is a conversation we need to have with our boys and our girls. We educate. We can understand that we need to educate about sex and sexuality. We understand that we need to educate about so many different things, about alcohol and what age is acceptable and making sure you keep yourself safe. The same way. And I think we should bring in the organizations that are leading from the front, like the Hemp Association of Ghana and other, and the Rastafari Council of Ghana and our locals from the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, because we have a long-term history with the cannabis plant. And we love the youth, and we do youth programming. So why not bring in these organizations into the schools to tell them the truth about it? And again, when I want everybody, when you're having when that glass of wine is sitting on the counter on Christmas or whatever you're celebrating this holiday season, remember that and look at how contrary that is. That we can tell children, no, you're not drinking that, but we can't say, hey, this spliff is not for you.
Yeah.
It's just we've been brainwashed.
Yeah.
And the main reason why it's demonized are, one, competing industries like harmful plastics that were driven from the 1930s and given precedence since the 1930s for financial reasons. That's why they demonized cannabis. And, also alternate intoxicants, or the vice industry, gambling, alcohol, things like that. It's very competitive.
Yes.
Yeah. And when, like, let's say the gambling industry, when one is gambling and they've taken alcohol, they're going to make more mistakes.
Yeah.
When they're taking cannabis, they're not going to make those mistakes. They'll be more alert,
conscious.
actually.
Yeah. More conscious.
That's a perfect word. More conscious. So these are the things. This is our opposition as an industry. It's not as straightforward. And there's plenty of research on the benefits of cannabis as well. Fortunately, you can go on PubMed. Just Google PubMed and put cannabis in. There's tons of articles about the benefits, especially with terminal illnesses and things like that, epilepsy, MS, so many HIV and AIDS, where cannabis has been included in the treatment options, and we've seen a lot of success from that.
That's amazing. That's a very good thing to hear.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's definitely. There's many uses for the cannabis plant when you look at it medicinally. Now, inside our industry, we have some controversy. So it's like, do we isolate compounds? Because there's certain cannabinoids that are better for certain things, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure that out ourselves along with the research. There's CBN and CBG and CBD, and there's THC, there's THCA, and everything. We call it an entourage effect. And the entourage effect is about how these blended cannabinoids and flavonoids and terpenes work together for your medicinal health. So some people are like, and especially being Rastafari, we love whole plant medicine. Don't separate out, don't isolate the compounds. And then in labs, people are isolating the compounds and saying, we were able to treat pancreatic cancer, which Dr. Lowe from Jamaica has a pancreatic cancer drug that's being tested by isolating certain flavonoids in the plant. I say, do whatever will help people. We can isolate in the labs, and we can still allow people to have access to whole plant medicine. But the last thing I wanted to say on that is why cannabis has been restricted. It's freedom of economy. It's freedom of economy. Rastafari, even looking at Pinnacle in Jamaica, Pinnacle was a whole ecosystem that was created and funded by cannabis in Jamaica. So when people have the ability to trade a plant, it distances from some of these infrastructural things that government puts in place. But we can remedy that if we come together as a community, work with government, have legislation that allows for social justice. And when I say social justice, I'm talking about, first, the justice part of it, and looking at how many people have been harmed by being imprisoned for it, and remedying that. Bring them home, reunite them with their families, expunge their records, give them extra education so that to make up for the years they may have been incarcerated. So there's the social justice part of it. Then there's the social equity or equitable access to the business opportunity. Yeah, let people who come from disadvantaged communities lead from the front with this innovative emerging industry. And then finally, social responsibility and community reinvestment. After COVID, and Africa wasn't affected in the same way because you closed your doors in the right way. Yeah. And I commend Ghana for that and other African countries. But you know, a lot of the health systems around the world were devastated by COVID, and they're in a deficit still because of COVID. Cannabis dollars can flow into our community and remedy some of those deficits that we have. So let's set up a fair taxation structure so that, yes, we know this is in the vice industry like gambling, like alcohol. You put taxes that are appropriate on gambling and alcohol. Do the same thing for cannabis so that these funds can flow back into our communities that have need. Yeah. So social responsibility or community reinvestment. Cannabis is an excellent community reinvestment tool.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense.
Thank you so much.
That's very good. All right, so let's get into a bit of your personal life. Yes. You mentioned earlier on that you are divorced.
I am, yes.
Are you married again?
I'm not. I'm single. Yes, I'm single, actually. I've been single for a long time.
Okay.
I divorced probably 2013, 2014.
Well, and you've been single since then?
Yes, I've dated, but I've been single since then. Yeah.
Okay. And how are you like at home with your son?
I'm home with my son, but I'm on the road a lot too. So that's the other part, which makes it difficult for maintaining a romantic relationship, but also makes it difficult for keeping my eye on my son. I have to have a tracker on him where I'm here in Ghana. I'm looking at he got out of the Gilbert today. You know, he's home now, and fortunately I have that technology that I can keep track of him. But yeah, our home life is, you know what? I say we're a team. My son and I are a team. If he wants the things he wants, he has to allow me to work. And while I'm working, he has to check in with me. Yeah. And when he has a need that needs to be raised above my work, he needs to be able to communicate that. And I can snap into action and support him the way he needs to be supported.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. But how would you describe your son?
My son? Yeah. My son is brilliant. He's brilliant. He's funny. He holds me accountable. He's very exposed. So he's traveled with me on this cannabis work and agriculture. He's been on so many farms throughout the United States. He's been to many countries, Jamaica. He hasn't been to the continent yet. He was supposed to be on this trip, but he has basketball because he's 6'5" and 14 years old. He's very tall and he's really good at basketball. And yeah, he's been to Canada. He's been to the UK several times. He's traveled to multiple dates with me. He's been on lots of farms with me. He's seen me on stage so many times. It's nothing for him. So when he grows up, him being on stage is not going to be anything. No big deal.
Mom is always on stage.
I'm always on stage. So, but he is my heart. He's my walking literal heart on this planet, and my hopes and my dreams all wound into one. And he's a brave kid, and I love him tremendously.
Great.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, he's the light. He's the light.
I see. What's your favorite thing to do? Apart from working, being at work, trying to do things, being on the road, what's your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing to do, honestly, being in community and educating. I guess you'd consider that work too, but I even coach a debate team, which is at his junior high school. So being with children and not even just children. I think I'm an educator at heart. I feel like I haven't even reached my dream career yet, believe it or not. But coaching debate and introducing our young people to, the concepts of conflict resolution in a healthy way, through understanding debate, the parts of a debate, how the pros and the cons, being able to express both the pros and the cons. You should know an issue so well that you anticipate what your opposition says, because you can be on both sides. Yeah. You've studied both sides. And introducing that to children is very important. So that's what I really love to do is share all the things that I've gotten through privilege to people who don't have that privilege and make them stronger so that when they reach wherever they're going to reach, they're going to be like, I remember that lady in 7th grade and she taught me about debate and she educated me on, the structures of government and things like that. That's really what I enjoy is teaching. I've taught at NYU on cannabis, New York University. I'd love to teach internationally. I'd love to be a professor. But educating people comes naturally. With the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, we have our Saturday meetings where our global membership can join, and we have guest speakers and things like that. I love doing that. I took like one AI class, and I was like, I'm going to teach everyone AI, just because I couldn't keep it to myself. Yes. But yeah, so learning is important to me. But once I learn, figuring out how it can, help our community move forward, I love that. I don't consider that to be work. Right. Okay. I consider that to be like what I'm called to do. Yeah.
And let's talk about food. What's your favorite meal?
Oh my goodness! So
to prepare, to eat.
Preparing, I do make my curry chickpeas. Is very popular with plantain rice. I have a jerk fried rice that I make that my son likes. So because I'm vegetarian and he's not, there aren't that many things that we eat together.
Oh, okay.
So like when I can find something like the jerk fried rice, he eats it and I eat it, or like a Thai noodle or something. We both eat that. So those are like my favorite things to like cook. I just found a recipe for Mongolian oyster mushrooms that I made, and that was really good. I love oyster mushrooms, so like a fried oyster mushroom dish, or oyster mushrooms that could be like a chicken sandwich, but not with chicken. I love that.
How about Ghanaian meal?
Oh, the jollof. Jollof rice. I love jollof rice. Listen, jollof is special. It's a comfort food. I know how to make jollof, but I learned to make jollof from my Nigerian sisters because I went to church with them in England. I lived in England.
Okay.
So that was the jollof recipe I learned back in early, I guess, between 2005 and 2008. But yes, because I'm vegetarian, I haven't tasted all the great things that Ghana has to offer from a culinary perspective. Because I don't eat meat. Okay. But I do enjoy the jollof rice. My favorite breakfast in Ghana.
Let's watch it.
No, I went to Kempinski Hotel. So when I was here in 2020, I stayed at the Kempinski, which is like a 5-star hotel. Yes. I've traveled the entire world. I've never experienced service like I experienced in the Kempinski Hotel in Ghana. I never had a breakfast buffet spread like I experienced at the Kempinski Hotel in Ghana. But for me, a good breakfast is like some sauteed vegetables, because in Jamaica we have kalaloo, we have ackee and saltfish. I don't eat saltfish, so I'll do just ackee, and then we'll have our ground provisions. So here, again, we're not distant. Jamaicans, I think our ancestry often ties to Ghana. Yeah. So when we like,
have a bit of common.
We do.
When it comes to
we do. We have a lot in common. Even Anansi Stories. I was saying something yesterday about Anansi Stories. How when I came to visit in 2020 and went to visit with the mayor of Accra, because I came on a diplomatic trip with Broward County, Florida, traveling with their vice mayor. I went into in the mayor's, I don't know if you've been in the mayor's headquarters, but downstairs there's that library to the right. Yeah. So in there, that's when I saw Nancy Stories, and I'm like, I thought Nancy Stories were Jamaican, but those are things that we've passed on. But going back to the food, with our kalaloo, you cook greens as well, and with the tomatoes and onions and stuff. So a lot is common. And then yesterday when I came, I was greeted by one of my locals, Local 24, at Legacy Garden. So if you want a nice place to stay in Ghana, go to Legacy Garden Apartments, because our local, our first vice president runs that. It owns that. And the meal was so nice. It was just fresh greens sauteed, and then yams, like fresh yams. So we call that ground provisions in Jamaica, like your yam, your boiled plantain, your boiled banana, and all these things. So that's what I love to eat when I'm in Ghana, because it makes me feel like I'm in Jamaica. And like when I went to Kumasi, And I went to Agogo, which is the sister city for Broward County, Florida. When I was driving down, we call it a main drag, but the main street between, because we'd seen the Ashanti. So when we left the Ashanti and we were going to Agogo, to our sister city, I could have been in Jamaica. I literally could have like blinked and believed I was in Jamaica with the vending on the streets, with the people, how lively. Same. Same.
Yeah. How about music? What music do you love to listen to?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of reggae music. I'll be honest. I love Tosh. I love Bob Marley. But I love Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill's one of my favorites. Amy Winehouse, rest in peace. She was a favorite of mine.
So what's your favorite song, reggae song?
The Conquering Lion of Judah. The Conquering Lion is my favorite reggae song. And we sing it at Bingies as Rastafari. But I think, the fact that, it's an overcoming story. Yeah. The Conquering Lion will break every chain.
The Conquered Lion will break every chain. That's the title of the song.
Yeah, so it's the Conquering Lion, but it says the Conquering Lion will break every chain. Lauryn Hill has a really unique arrangement of it that I love very, very much. But it's part of our tradition as Rastafari.
Great.
And it's about overcoming. So that is my favorite song is the Conquering Lion.
All right. Before we leave, because we're just about to wrap up, I was
having so much fun with you.
I want to ask that one question that will stick somebody who is doing the watching right now.
Yes.
So what is your success formula?
My success formula: be kind, be yourself, be strong, be a visionary. Do no harm. Meditate. Know your God. And look for contributors everywhere. Because everyone can contribute.
Thank you so much, Harry.
You're welcome.
Had an amazing chat, a lot of education in there.
Thank you so much.
And one thing that I have taken with me is how important education is.
Education is everything, but education is everything. So it doesn't have to be formal education.
Yeah.
A lot of people have educated. Trade education is so important for our future. Discussions and dialogue. We always think philosophy, Socrates, Plato. We've had African philosophers since the beginning of time.
Yes.
Why are we looking outside ourselves?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's education too, is having an exchange of ideas without conflict. That we are catalysts for each other. Your concept, I may not have had that idea initially, but when you had that idea and we talk about it, then I get another higher level idea.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
So much.
I appreciate you.
All right. So you are watching People in Life, and if you join us from the beginning to the end, I'm sure you have picked one or two things to guide yourself from Sherry's story. She was our guest for today, and her name is Honorable Sherry Monroe Powell, Esquire. She's an expert in agriculture and cannabis. She's thrown a light on cannabis and agriculture, and also she is an international president for the Ethiopian Federation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I do want to send greetings on behalf of His Imperial Highness, our Prince from the Crown Council of Ethiopia, Prince Ermias. He has authorized me to give greetings to the people of Ghana. So we have greetings from Prince Ermias of the Crown Council of Ethiopia for all Ghanaians, and congratulations on a successful Diaspora Summit this week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so my name is Naya Chidi, and the show once again is People in Life. Please do enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.
Are you member of a LEAP beneficiary household? Do you know a LEAP beneficiary in your community? The Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection is pleased to announce that the 99th cycle payment of the LEAP cash grant will begin on Wednesday, 17 December 2025. Here's the grant amount for your household. One eligible member household is entitled to 320 Ghana cedis. Two eligible member households is entitled to 380 Ghana cedis. Three eligible member households is entitled to 440 Ghana cedis. And four or more eligible member households are entitled to 530 Ghana cedis. When you collect your money, please remember to count your money at the pay point. Don't leave until you are sure it is correct. Ask for help from your community volunteer or the social welfare officer if you need it. Do not accept even 1 cedi less than your full entitlement. Always collect your receipt and keep it safe. Do not give your money to anyone else. This grant is for you and your household. Use your LEAP grant wisely. Invest in your family's nutrition, health, and your children's education. You can also use it to start a small business or farming activity to build a more secure